when two dogs meet each other, they usually sniff each other's what?
Butt.
Yeah, the bums. Well, you know what? This story I'm going to tell you explains what they're really doing. They're not really sniffing each other's bums. Now, a friend of mine told me this story, and he's a Coast Salish First Nations person, okay? And he's a storyteller. And he told me this story a long time ago, and it's a funny story. But it's called How the Dogs Lost Their Tails. Long ago, when the world was new, and all the animal people walked and talked just like you and me, there lived a chief amongst the dog people who had had a new longhouse made. It was huge. It was huge, this longhouse. It was so long, it had 3 smoke holes for 3 different fire pits. And it had beautiful carved totems at the entrance and beautiful carved poles that held up the walls and the roof. And he was so proud of this longhouse. He decided that he was going to have a celebration. He was going to have a potlatch and invite all the dog people from all around to come to this celebration. So he sent out messengers, and they traveled for days, spreading the word and telling all the dog people in 7 days to come to the chief of the dog people's new longhouse for this celebration and to see the wonder of this longhouse. Well, after a few days, the chief of the dog people, he was thinking, and he was wondering what was going to happen with all the dog people there. You see, because the dog people, they knew how to celebrate. There would be feasting. Then there would be drumming and singing and storytelling. And after that, there would be dancing. And when the dog people danced, they were wild and crazy, and they danced, and they wiggled their bums, and their tails knocked everything over, and would make a huge mess. And he thought, oh no, if all the dog people are in the longhouse, and they start dancing wildly and crazy, and wiggling their bums, and wagging their tails, they're going to make a mess. But then he got an idea. So a few more days passed, and all the dog people gathered. And the chief stood in front of the longhouse and said, "Welcome, welcome all my friends and relations. Welcome to my new longhouse. Before you come in, I ask you to do one thing. Take off your tails and hang them at the hook at the door if you want to come in." Wow. All the dog people had traveled so far. They agreed. So as they came in one at a time, they took off their tails and they hung them up on the hook of the door. And sure enough, there was a great feast. Then there was storytelling around all the fire pits. Then there was drumming and singing. And then there was dancing. And the dog people danced around and wiggled their bums, but they had no tails, so they didn't make any mess. And the chief, he was very happy about that. But as they drummed and sang and danced, they got wilder and crazier. And nobody noticed that the dogs were dancing too close to the fire. And some of the dogs kicked some coals and ambers out of the pit and into the wood, the dry cedar and the firs. And before anybody knew it, the longhouse started on fire. And the fire was too big to put out. So everybody yelled, "Fire, fire!" And all the dog people went running to get out of the longhouse. And there was no time to look for the right tail, so they just grabbed any tail and put it on. And that's why, from that day to this, when two dogs meet each other, they're not sniffing each other's bums. They're looking for their right tails.
Yeah.